Oh man, I love this bike. I love this bike. But anyway, you know, like I was saying, you know, you may only have one bike to choose from, and that's going to be the bike that you're going to use for your everyday purposes. You know, that's the one bike, you know, you can afford. And when I say afford, I'm not talking about just, you know, purchasing your bike. You know, there's a lot of different, you know, things you have to think about, you know, when choosing your bike. So the goal for me was, you know, it's 2024, you know, and a lot of people are out here, as we used to call it back in the days, faking jacks. You know, financing all of these cars they can't afford, and that's why the repo, you know, the repos are so high today. You know, people can't, you know, afford these cars. You know, to get them with, you know, the bare minimum, you know, down payment. Monthly payments, you know, the interest, you know, is through the roof. Can't afford it. The car payment is through the roof. They can't afford it. And most importantly, and this is the real big one, the insurance is what kills a lot of people. A combination of car payments and insurance payments is what kills, you know, a lot of, you know, commuters. And you combine that with getting cars that they just don't need. You know, you're getting something, you know, just to stunt, you know, to say it looks good, you know, for everybody else. And, you know, based on, you know, your salary and what you're making, and I know a lot of people don't want to talk about this, but, you know, it's important. You know, everybody want to act like, you know, they're millionaires, you know, and making billions of dollars, you know, doing whatever, you know, whether it's their, you know, regular job, you know, their side hustle combination. And it's like, man, you know, who are you doing this for? Why did you go out to get that Mercedes Benz? You know, like I said, you know, when you're buying these new cars, you know, what are you buying it for? You know, you're buying a BMW, you're buying a Lexus, you know, you're buying a Chrysler, the new thing out here in South Florida. Everybody's getting these Dodge Chargers. You know, they're getting the 2023s, the 2024s, and they can't afford them. And, you know, looks good, you know, and everything, but, you know, that stuff is keeping you broke. So, you know, the concept, and I'm just talking because I want everybody to be a motorcycle rider and not drive cars. So I'm being biased. But I'm also being realistic. Realistic in the sense that, you know, as a rider, you want to enjoy your ride But at the same time, you want to keep your expenses low. And I'm going to tell you right now, you can get a really beautiful looking bike. Take like this Yamaha 2021 R3. And this bike can be parked next to a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, a BMW, a Lexus, or whatever it is. And for some reason, motorcycles always tend to stand out. So if you're into, you know, how you look at the flash and everything, trust me, you get a motorcycle, especially a sport bike, or one of those, you know, beautiful, you know, cafe racers, your bike will stand out in the crowd, especially if it's clean. Everybody will compliment you. You know, I get compliments on this bike all the time. You know, it's actually a rare color as well. So this is like the teal orange and you know, black color. Now I don't know if it's specifically made for Florida, but I think it is, because a lot of people are kind of saying this color scheme is very difficult to find in other states. But you know, out here in Florida, yeah, this bike was, you know, pretty much available. So, and I know Yamaha, they always have like a different color scheme, you know, every time they launch their bikes. You know, they have like their standard, you know, royal bluish type of color, you know, their standard black. And then they'll have one like this, where it's like a grayish, you know, blackish, you know, mixed with a different color, you know, on the wheels. So no matter what bike you get, you know, your bike is going to look good, you know, regardless. It's going to look good. And the thing about motorcycling is that, you know, people are afraid to do it, and a lot of people don't have, you know, the mind to muscle coordination to actually ride a bike, a motorcycle, because, you know, it requires a lot of your body to control and help stay in control of, you know, your motorcycle. And, you know, I'm just talking about basic functions, you know, using the clutch, throttle, shifter, controlling your brakes. You know, all of your limbs are pretty much controlling what you do on the bike. And the one thing that I love about, you know, riding is that you're in full control. You decide how much power you give it, how much you take away. It's, you know, it's all manual, so it's pretty much all on you. But you can get all of that at the fraction of a cost of a car. Not to mention, as long as you don't crash your bikes, these bikes are bulletproof. I mean, these Japanese bikes, you know, the Kawasaki's, you know, the Yamaha, you know, Suzuki's, you know, these bikes will probably outlast your life. You know, high mileage is always a thing, you know, on cars. High mileage on bikes, yeah. Is it a thing? And from my understanding, it's there, as a caveat, but it's definitely not the two-all be-all. So with a combination of all of that, you know, in choosing your first bike, you know, you're going to get something brand new, or even if it's a used bike, it's going to be practically brand new, and it's going to be a fraction of a cost. And that's how you save yourself money, you know, from, you know, the commute. And the great thing about it, and another reason why, you know, I chose, you know, the 300 class of bikes, and I'm probably going to stay in between the 300, 400 class of bikes, is because, you know, the cost is so low to own the bike and maintain the bike. I give you a perfect example. Oh, look at this. Beautiful, you know. Sun is coming out now. You know, it's a little cooler, you know, but it's still summertime here in South Florida. You still got that beautiful weather. But back to what I was saying, as far as the cost, I want you to take this into consideration. Full coverage insurance, dirt cheap. When I first got my Ninja 250, my insurance was $13 a month. $13 a month. Wouldn't you love to pay $13 insurance for your car? But you can't. I'm sorry, I apologize. Now when you move up, you know, in bikes, so now, you know, I have like, you know, 300. Every time you move up, you know, in CCs, you know, the insurance goes up, because they figure, you know, the more powerful the bike, the more likely you are to crash. So it does go up, but it doesn't go up that much. So now, you know, my 300, and I already have my 300 for a while, you know, every year it goes up in price, you know, year to year. But right now, literally, I'm paying 40 bucks a month, full coverage insurance, for this beautiful Yamaha R3. Now combine that insurance payment with your payment if you decide to finance the bike, which I don't recommend. It's going to be cheap. So you can literally finance the bike for the price of insurance and a car payment combined, because when you look at the insurance and how much it costs, you can literally just, you know, take that out. But like I said, I don't recommend financing bikes, because, you know, once you crash it or something happens, you know, that's it, you know, it's yours. So you get a used bike, and you pay cash for it, you eliminate the whole entire payment thing, and you just pay your insurance. The next beautiful thing right after that, that you can't beat, is your gas mileage. Now, I never looked into you know, miles per gallon and stuff like that, because it's all variable. And I think, you know, when they do the whole miles per gallon thing, I think it's literally done without, you know, any stops, you know, in between. I think it's just going straight until, you know, your vehicle just runs out of gas. Say like highway mileage, you get on the highway and, you know, that dictates to them what the miles per gallon is. Because it definitely doesn't apply to the streets. Like now, like I'm sitting in traffic and naturally, you know, the bike is still on, so I'm utilizing, you know, gas. So I don't think they factor that in, you know, when you're in the you know, the stop and go, you know, the stop and go, you know, stage or whatever the case is. But even still, you know, gas prices are, you know, pretty much high. There's a gas station over there. I don't know if you can see, but it says I think it's like $2.50 something, $2.30 something. I'm not sure. It literally cost me $8, you know, just to fill up my tank. So, and that tank will last me a whole entire week of riding to work, maybe running a few errands here and there. It'll last me a whole week. So you combine that $8 with your $40, that's your transportation cost on a daily. So your monthly payment is $40. Let's say between $40 and $50 your monthly payment for your insurance, full coverage insurance. And your gas, you're paying like, you know, $8, and I would say, you know, $10 top for some bikes. Even when the gas prices were super duper high, I was only paying $12 to fill up my tank, and that's still great. Now you gotta ask yourself, man, what can you do with all that extra money that you're saving? And that's the key. You know, that's one of the beauties of owning a motorcycle. You know, the cost. Depending on what type of bike you get, once you start getting up to like, you know 600, 1000s, you're gonna be paying pretty much almost the same cost for a car. Because like I said, the more super duper fast bikes, those crazy track bikes, those type of bikes, you know, a lot of people tend to crash on them, and that's why the insurance costs, you know, is so high. So for, you know, commuting, I mean, you can get one of those class bikes if you want to, but I don't recommend it. You know, I rode a 600, you know, cc bike. You know, it was a Kawasaki, and nice bike. But for my purposes, it was just, you know, too fast for the streets. And it requires an extra bit of concentration, which I didn't want to do. It requires a lot of compensation because those bikes are, you know, they're not forgiving, man. Like, you make one mistake, you know, on that throttle, you hit that throttle a little bit too hard, and that's why a lot of people are crashing. You know, a lot of dudes and gals are crashing on these bikes, you know, because they can't control them. You know, yeah, it looks flashy, look like you it, and you can do your wheelies and stuff like that, man, but you can't even ride basically on, you know, the regular streets, you know, safely. My thing as a commuter, I always wanted to be safe. You know, and that's moving into my next topic, you know, after the cost of everything. You know, I always wanted to be safe, you know, riding out here, you know, on these streets. You know, this right here, what I'm doing right now, this is what I consider, you know, real life riding. You know, and all riding is great, don't get me wrong, and I'm not knocking any type of riding that anybody does, but I'm just talking, you know, specifically, you know, for those, you know, who want to, you know, commute back and forward to work, and they're not necessarily on the highway. A 300 or 400 you can definitely do on the highway. Gotta be careful though, you know, on the highway. Certain bikes, like my Ninja 300, she did pretty okay, you know, on the highway. I didn't have super fast acceleration speed if I needed to get out of trouble, so I had to time everything that I was going to do if I was going to change lanes or make passes. So that's something you got to keep in mind. With this R3 is a 321. And I don't know if it's because of the extra 21 cc's that's in this bike. But this bike, it's, you know, it's kind of torquey. You know, it's for, you know, in the 300 class, it's torquey. You get off the line pretty quick, and it's definitely a lot more stable than, you know, than my Ninja. It's a real stable bike at 300, you know, for a 300 class and at highway speeds. I was very, very surprised, and the wind deflection on this bike is freaking awesome. Now, I don't really have to tuck until if I get to like 80 miles per hour, you know, steady. Yeah, I gotta, you know, slightly tuck to kind of get behind that windshield so that wind is not smacking me, you know, right in the neck and chest. But for the most part, you know, the highway limit out here is about, you know, I think the I-95 is like 55, 60 miles an hour. The turnpike is like 70. So you got to figure everybody normally goes about 10 miles per hour more than what the speed limit is. And I'm not telling you to do that, but as a reality, you know, that's what it is. So this bike is more than capable of doing, you know, 80 miles per hour, you know, on a long stretch. I've done it before. And like I said before, I'm actually 6'2", 240 pounds. Solid muscle, by the way. Yep, solid muscle. But yeah, and I have no issues, you know, on the bike. So people who saying they have issues, if anybody did, I don't think I've really seen anyone who said they have an issue on the R3 models. And, you know, but a lot of people are small, you know, they're short in stature, you know, they're lightweight, so maybe the wind, they flick them around a little bit more than normal. I do get like some wind, you know, here and there, but it's nothing that's not controllable. You know, it's, the wind hits you and it feels like you're going in one direction, you just counter steer into the opposite direction. Oh, KL, what's counter steering? We'll get into that in another video. But basically, if the wind hits you one direction, you want to, you know, kind of go, you know, just a little bit in the opposite direction. You know, you position yourself, you know, that way, and controlling your bike in the opposite direction. And that's how you learn, you know, and you won't learn these things unless you're actually, you know, on the streets out here doing it yourself. So from a safety factor, I'm gonna tell you guys right now, man, like, especially if you go down to Miami, you know, Miami Beach, the Brickell area, and I hate going down there. The traffic is just terrible. You got a, you know, 600, you know, 1,000 in those areas, you can forget it. Like, there's a lot of stop and go. And like I said, if you accelerate too fast, too quick, you're gonna run into somebody. If you don't slow down fast enough, you don't know how to use the brakes, you're gonna run into somebody. But, you know, for the super duper experienced people, you know, it's not really a problem to them. But as a beginner, and I still consider myself a beginner, even though I've been riding for about, you know, 4.5 years. Yeah, as of right now, I'm extremely happy and comfortable on this lovely Yamaha R3. And I'm content. People say, oh, you get bored. You get bored with the bike after a while, you're gonna want to upgrade. Nope. Not me. Not for the purposes, you know, of what I use this for. I don't use this bike for the typical, you know, just having fun on the weekends. You know, like I said, I use this bike to, you know, get around everywhere. I love the cost. I love the maintenance. I love the speed that it gives me. Everything is just right. You know how you got something that's like, man, it's just right. And you feel it? Yeah. Now later on, of course, I may want to get a different bike. But I'm going to tell you right now, comparing this, you know, to my last, you know, bikes, the Kawasaki, and I love Kawasaki, don't get me wrong. Those are awesome bikes to have, beautiful bikes, but Yamaha, this R3 just won me over, man. I mean, this bike is so comfortable. It's high up. Like before, like I'm behind this truck right here, and you know, my head level was about just below the top, you know, the top of the truck. So before, my Ninja was kind of like, you know, maybe like in between, you know, right where the top of the, you know, the back of the this trunk compartment back here, just up by where the passenger is sitting, you know, in the driver's seat. So it was kind of low. So I'm not understanding, you know, what the difference is, or maybe I'm just going crazy. But anyway, this particular bike, I love this particular bike. Like I said, cost, easy to own, and this is a 2021 model. When I got it, it only had 1,500 miles on it. Brand spanking new. No fees, no dealer fees, anything like that. Only thing I had to pay for extra was, you know, to get my registration and tags, and that was it. Everything else was just the cost of the bike. So out the door, I paid $6,500 in cash, you know, out the door, and the bike was $5,000. I love those twisties, but I don't like riding behind trucks. You know, I like to be able to see, you know, see everything. Got another motorcyclist, you know, in front of me, so you know, you see another motorcyclist, you know, give him space, you know, out of respect, and kind of want to ride in the stagger formation, you know, if I was in the same lane. This car turning ahead. You know, I don't know what cars, man. Like cars, if you see somebody on a motorcycle scooter, why not just wait until they pass? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand, the concept, of people, when they driving out here on the roads. There's already no protection for riders out here on the streets. Why make it worse? It's one of those situations where you're behind, a vehicle like this that has, an attachment to it, and then you're stuck in between. So you want to get out of these situations fast. Don't want to be behind them. Big ass garbage trucks, coming up. Got a van get ready to make a U-turn. The only reason why I didn't go to the right lane is because if I would have sped up going to the right lane, that van probably would have wanted to make that right turn. It would have been super slow, and I would have been at speed. And next thing you know, crash. Stuff like that you got to worry about. Use your turn signals. Do a head check, when you change the lanes. But anyway, almost done with this video. As you can see, the sun is coming out. I'm close to work, so choosing your first bike, owning your first bike. This was just a brief synopsis of cost factor, how to stay safe a little bit, and we'll get into more details about all of these things a bit later on. So don't be so quick to get to your destination. Let that air hit you, feel the breeze, just feel life around you, the elements. You're gonna have fun. So I'll catch you guys on the next video.